motion from Member Georgino and a second from Member Lynn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Just a real quick announcement. Tonight's meeting is being digitally recorded. And then on to the pledge. Member Georgino is our designee for the night. I think she was a substitute.
Yes, I'd like to ask our student board member, Samuel Al, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Samuel. The next item on our agenda is announcements of action taken in closed session. If any, there were no actions taken, so we have nothing to announce. And with that, we're going to move on to special recognition tonight. Matt Byers and a group of students that went to Australia and New Zealand, so looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This last June, we had the distinct honor of representing our schools and our community in New Zealand and Australia for a tour, music tour. Part of it was spurred on by relationship with the Sister Cities folks, and years ago when the band had gone back in 88, 89, Brightside had been invited, and we just hadn't gotten around to it, and so we finally did. It's on the bucket list, and so if you know anything about my program, touring, taking students on tour, representing our community, whether it's in another city or here in town or another city or around the state, East Coast, Europe, wherever, is a real high priority for me. I am a firm believer that our students are great ambassadors, not just good, but great ambassadors. And with everything that's depicted in the news, all the negativity and stuff like that, I really feel like our students go out and do a great job flipping the coin on this. And the fact that they're from Temple City, it kind of puts us on the map all over the world is a pretty cool thing. And I'm always very, very proud to take the students. And so this tour, which started in New Zealand and then went to Australia with a homestay in the Hawkesbury, was just an amazing tour. The students were great, the performances were great. We pretty much got through the whole thing without too many injuries. Poor Mr. Westgate, who, as it turned out, broke his foot at the very beginning of the tour, and without complaining once, trudging through. So he gets special kudos for being a great trooper. And I do have some students that are going to share a little bit about some of their experiences, but before we do that, we have a video presentation that was put together by one of our members, Tyler Williams, who is now a 9th grade student. Tyler?
No.
Okay. And anyhow, he put this together, and it is amazing what he did. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mon, or does this do it here?
We're going to do it from here.
Do it from there? Perfect. So this is just some highlights of our tour. Hobbiton is the film set for The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series.
Is it working? I'm going to invite Kevin Betts here and Jennifer Pallion to share a couple of the highlights for them for the tour.
Hello, so I'm Kevin and I just graduated this last year. I was fortunate enough to be in this program for a couple years and to go on multiple of these tours. I was very fortunate and I've had a fantastic time on all of them. This one was particularly special to me because of when we went to the Hawkesbury in association with the Sister City program. That was probably the memory that stood out most to me. We went to this high school, Arndale, and we spent the whole day with the students there. And it was very special because we shared music with them and they shared music with us. And I think it's established to everyone, even if they didn't speak English, which of course they do, music is something that carries over to every culture, every country, everywhere all over the world. So I think it's a very special way of sharing time with someone and sharing emotions. So even if they didn't speak English, but of course they did. But it was still a very powerful, they had jazz bands and bands they played for us. And we of course sang and danced for them. And there was mutual appreciation for each other's arts, which was very special. And then not only that, probably more powerful was just having the day to talk with them about our different cultures and school systems and music, and there's something very special and powerful about talking to someone who lives on the other side of the earth as you, but still having so much in common, and being able to appreciate the same things, and having mutual kindness and sharing. Even though we're so far away geographically, we have such similar ideals and all that. So the whole day, everyone was just being friendly, and it was crazy that over the course of a few hours, we became best friends essentially with these kids, people our age, who we never met before. I mean, realistically, probably won't meet in person again, but it was just a very special experience. And of course, that's just one of many of the great things we did on this trip, and all the sightseeing was very amazing and spectacular. But to me, this stuck out because it was this human interaction that showed the similarities between very different places. Yeah. So that was my special memory. Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is James Italian. This was my first year in Brighter Side doing this, and it was my first trip actually with Brighter Side. It was really exciting. That video that you guys saw, that's a small portion of what I feel actually was the whole trip, but it was like some of the best portion because you got to see what we did and how we performed and who we performed for, which is really amazing. So I have a couple notes because I want to keep myself on track. So I don't want to wander off. So anyways, the performing was one of the best parts, truly was, of all the different people we got to perform for. Like you saw at the Sydney Opera House, we got to perform inside. And then we did a flash mob outside where we kind of looked like regular people, and then we all came together and started singing. We got a good crowd of about like 100 people, I would say. That was really awesome. But some memories that really stood out to me this trip and that I'll always hold on to was our homestay. So after we went to Arndale and we met all those kids, we got to participate in a homestay where we got to stay with the Sister City program. And the people I got to stay with, her name was Maddie, and she had recently come with the Sister City beforehand, and she was with my friend Kennedy. And so I met her through Kennedy, and I knew her. And then it was really fortunate for me to get Maddie again when I went over there. So I got to hang out with her and see her family, and then I saw how she got to live, and she plays netball, and I went to one of her games, and it was really exciting to just see this like different culture variation, and it was really amazing. My next favorite experience was when we went to Cairns. That truly was amazing, because we're in the deadliest country in the world of Australia. And, it's not where I thought I'd go for the first time when I'm going to travel out of the country. I'd probably start easy, but, we got thrown right into it. And so we went to Cairns, and Cairns was where the adventure really started for me when we got there, because we got a private island, it was all going really well, and then we went on a tide pool tour, Now this wasn't any type of experience. We got there, and me wanting to touch everything because I'm so excited, I had to resist because like everything's poisonous in Australia. We're walking around, and then all of a sudden, Tyler, who made the video, he points out a small fish. And so he's like, "Is this a stonefish?" And the lady goes, "No." And then we walk past, and she looks back at it, and she goes, "Wait, it is." And a stonefish, if you don't know, can kill you in 10 minutes if you step on its spike. And so that was really exciting. We all gathered around, and then she started slowly inching towards it, showing the spikes that could kill us. And she's like, "This fish is extremely slow. You don't need to worry about it." She gets closer and closer, and then the fish zooms off in the direction of everyone. It scared the heck out of all of us. It was hilarious. That was like one of my main memories. And then there's also like poisonous red clams that I almost touched, and poisonous sea slugs, but it was just an exciting experience. I'm glad that, I didn't get anything or I didn't die, but it was a great experience. That was like one of the truly memorable things. And then, so one of my final memory of the trip is the trip in general, but I want to say the opportunities we had when we were able to wander off. Not because we were like, we're going to go party and we're going to go do this and do that because we were not allowed to do it in America, but because we got the chance to explore and not be teenagers, but represent Temple City and see new things. We got to go off and wander and try new foods and see the souvenirs that they had and be able to just see the cultural difference. So like, we got to wander off some of the first times when we were in Auckland, and I discovered with a couple people a hidden record store inside like this small like area, and that was really cool because we don't have any record stores here that were that big, and it was just so cool seeing the big disc that you put in, and then I don't know what they're called exactly, but I think yeah.
No, the record,
And then we got to explore on one of the last days in Kuranda, which is a jungle-type village up in the mountains. And I went with Amir and a couple other people, and we went to this butterfly sanctuary. And me and Amir were wearing these colorful hats. And so we had butterflies flying in and out and landing on top of our heads, and we were getting pictures. That was just really special and cool because there's a butterfly sanctuary here, but I don't know, it wasn't as amazing and great an experience as it was over in Kuranda, which was in Australia, which is really amazing. And so, out of all this, this experience was just truly special for me, and it was my first time out of the country, it was my first time doing anything this amazing, and it was great that I got to do it with Brighter Side because they're such a special group. And it was just a really fun trip, and I'll definitely bring a full bodysuit the next time I go. Just in case. But yeah, thank you.
Come here. Yeah, come on up. Our final speaker.
Hello, my name is Amir Abdallah. I'm a senior at Temple City High School. Sorry, I just gotta practice. Okay, well, this gets very emotional for me just looking back at the trip. I truly think that it was honestly a blessing to even go over there because as someone, I come from a family of a single mother of 4, so just thinking about traveling across the world is kind of crazy because everything's so tight around the household, so like just thinking about paying for a trip and going somewhere else is kind of a crazy thought. But my mom was always the type of person that no matter how hard it is for me, don't let that stop you from chasing your dreams and your goals. She didn't care if it meant working 3-4 jobs, she was going to find a way to let me explore and for my passions. And this trip really opened my eyes. There was this one event that truly stuck with me the most. We were in New Zealand, and which was beautiful, by the way. Like, no matter where you went, like, I'm not good at taking pictures, but like, it doesn't matter where you are, you just take a picture, it looks like you were a professional. Like, just the scenery is just amazing, like, everywhere. Like, it's crazy. You look at the stars here, and you're like, oh, it's pretty. And then you go over there, it's like, oh my God, there's stars everywhere. Like, it's crazy. It's amazing. And so, there was this one event where we were at this
Maori Village.
Maori Village, there we go. And over there they had like, it was amazing. They taught us about their culture and they taught us like this really cool dance. Like, not haka, there we go. And then they also had this amazing feast for us, which was just amazing. And during that time, they talked about how their auntie, who had cancer, I believe? Stage 4 cancer. And so what we decided to do was take a video for them. So we sang Rise Up, which is a beautiful song. And it's pretty much about going beyond the obstacles that you face, which we thought was perfect for her case. And so we sent her that song. And we're just like, okay, we'll send her the song. Like, of course, it'll make her happy and stuff. And I didn't really put much thought into it. I just kind of like, okay, like, this will be nice. And then her reaction, they ended up videoing her reaction of her watching us, our video of us singing it to her. And then they sent back her reaction. And it's just her watching it, and she's like crying. And as soon as I saw that, I kid you not, I broke down and just cried. And at first, I didn't know why I was crying. I was like, we just did something really nice, like why am I crying? And I realized that as me personally, I'm on 3 teams at the high school. So I'm with Brighter Side, I'm with the pep squad, and I'm with the choreo team. And so it gets kind of hectic sometimes. You're like, okay, I have to go around everywhere. And you kind of, it takes away that time to really just sit back, relax, and enjoy the moment. Because instead of thinking about what you're doing, like why you're doing it, you're kind of like, okay, I just need to do this and get it over with. So having that moment where it made me feel that this wasn't about us anymore. We were going here to make new memories for Brighter Side and to go share our music, but it wasn't about us anymore. It was more about what we can do to give back to those people. Because sometimes we don't really see who we're impacting. We go to performances, in which there's a lot of performances, so it gets kind of hard to like, okay, just remember, it's hard to remember sometimes, you never know who is going to be out there. You don't know if there's someone there who may not have a roof over their head, who may be skipping meals, who maybe is just struggling, and you don't know if this one performance can possibly change their life or give them just an escape of happiness. And so just thinking about that woman and how it touched her, it made me realize that I'm a believer that there's a God and that we all have a purpose. And so just seeing that, it really opened my eyes and realized this wasn't about me. This entire time, I'm blessed that I was able to come because it made me realize that the reason we do this isn't for us. It's to change people and impact them, because you never know the struggles that they're going through. And this could possibly change someone's life. And just seeing that reaction made me realize through all the hard work, all the sweat, the tear, the blood, literally all of it. It's crazy to see how this one situation with this woman made it all worth it. No matter how many times we were like, oh, we have to wake up super early, we get out really late, all those hours we put into, it all just was worth it at the end, because we got to see this woman just have an escape and not worry about what she's going through or what she's going to have to face later on, but just be able to sit and relax and just feel peace. And I think that was probably the biggest part that really changed me as a person, to realize me joining these groups and being a part of these teams isn't just about me, it's about how we reach out to our communities. And with this trip beyond our communities into other nations, like, it's crazy. So it just made me realize that the next time I have a rehearsal or something, to not think about the time I have to put in, but think about how in the future this could possibly change someone's life. And I'm just so thankful that we have this trip. Thank you.
Part of that experience at the Maori Village, as I mentioned, it was real. I was just so impressed with the kids, and they did such a great job, not just performing, but as ambassadors. And part of that, just to add to that story, I mean, to see, and it was very moving for all of us were crying, watching this lady crying, as she's watching us give this message of hope to her, and she's in the middle of chemotherapy. But then afterwards, we found out that because we went and brought our American dollars to this lodge, the lodge that was giving us this experience, they are able to cook extra food and they were able to feed the school children for 2 days in their community from food that was cooked there for us. The students then proceeded to, after hearing this message and everything, got up and proceeded to do dishes and pack lunches for all of these children, and singing, putting on an impromptu concert while you're doing it. And then they started to, the word went around, let's collect a little money and just leave it, for the village as well. And as a teacher, to see students make this decision and collected money from their spending money that they earned, that they were given, and they collected over $500 to give this. And this was, all of us chaperones that went, we were just so moved. And obviously the people at the lodge, they were just stunned that people would come and that they were expecting to, have to teach us and feed us and all this. And they got this emotional tribute to their auntie. They got all these students to pack all these lunches, and then gave a donation to their work there in the community. It was, I think for all of us, a real life-changing, life-inspiring, and like Amir said, just gave us a mission and a focus for what we do every day. And so we do want to, of course, thank the school district for encouraging not just us, but many of the school groups to get out in the community and represent around the world. The school's foundation for their great generosity towards our tour. And then personally, I'd just like to thank our chaperones, Mr. Howie, and all these parents who pay their way and come along and partner with these kids and get to help them to see the world and see the positive influence they can have. And so with that, that's our presentation. Thank you so much, and I'll entertain any questions.
Matt, are there any questions? I had this one, I didn't want to detract from the wonderful trip you just shared all about, but I happened to catch a show yesterday. It may have involved you. Take a minute or two to tell us about that.
Okay. Well, I was nominated by a parent who was in our program, actually our summer program, several years ago. The Kelly Clarkson show was wanting to do a piece on honoring music teachers, and I got nominated, and somehow they got a questionnaire over to one of my daughters who secretly got the other girls together, and they wrote what I lovingly say was a beautiful obituary. No, I mean, it's really, I told them, hopefully your work's done, you're not gonna have to work on any of this. And anyhow, all these responses came in from around Southern California, and I was selected one of 20 people to just be honored. So it was one of those crazy television moments. You've all seen Oprah where she just gives everybody a car or something like that, and you always wish that, wow, wouldn't it be fun to be in that audience? Well, that's what happened. And, Sherry and the kids had come to support me, and unbeknownst to them, Ellen DeGeneres showed up and to congratulate Kelly Clarkson on her new show, and basically said, and to help you get things launched, we're going to give you all 65-inch flat screen TVs in the audience. The fact that I had 7 people in the audience totally decided for me. But my kids have forgiven me for all the concerts of theirs I've missed. And then at the very end, they blessed all the teachers with a cruise for Norwegian Cruise Line. So it's very humbling, and it was very kind of them, and I was very blessed and fortunate to be in that situation. So anyhow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's that? Oh, sure.
Yeah, can we do it with the kids and everybody?
Absolutely.
Come on, everybody. Kids and everybody.
Get your crutches.
Alexa wearing bright orange.
Get your crutches.
Alexa, use your crutches. Alexa, use your crutches. Alexa, use your crutches. No, Alexa, you don't want to.
Down low.
She's a promise or something.
So I'm
Okay, ready? Mr. President, could I ask a favor of you?
I can't move too easy.
No. After I take the photo, can Mr. Byers come up here and lead them in one song
Sure.
that I can get on video? That'd be great. Okay, here we go.
There's no problem.
Okay?
Which one?
Wait. We have a solo. Oh, yeah, we have a solo.
Everybody looking up?
All right, we'll try.
Mr. Byers, stand up there. There you go. And also you stand up.
Me?
Yep,
Yes,
yep,
L.
yep, stand up.
Stand
There you go.
policy.
Good. There you go, Kristen. All right, great. Okay, good. Perfect. Look over here. Great.
Blinded by the light.
Can you call it ground?
Don't go away.
Well, I didn't bring my
nothing yet.
Well, there's enough.
I don't know how to.
We are missing like a whole lot. Common ground? Without three hours. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
New generation ready to go. Each day we're learning, each day we grow. Finding some answers, finding a way. Finding the courage to stand up and say, we respect each other's dignity. We can take responsibility. We can be a person that people can trust. We can love one another, we can, we must.
2, 3,
Gonna meet on common ground, gonna make some
Such an awesome sound, everybody comes a-running, singing and a-humming along. Ooh, whoa, we can make the world a better place. Put a smile on everybody's face when we meet on common ground.
There you go. All right, thank you. Here we go. Thank you. Chaperone students. Come on, chaperone. Parents.
Okay. Yeah.
That's two. You bet. You forget that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Be the board director. Yeah. Okay, moving back to our agenda. Next item, item 11, public comment on agendized and non-agendized items. I do have one request tonight from, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Isidro Campo Jr., who wants to speak about cutting hours for the PE program at the elementary level. Isidro here? Please come on up and stand at the podium.
Good evening, council. Such a great presentation, and then we have to end it down here. No, but we're here to speak to you guys about PE aides getting their hours cut in the elementary level. So August 15th, we received an email saying our hours were going to be 26 to 28, around there. And then on August 30th, the second day of school, we were informed by, I think, Mrs. or Mercedes too, I believe. Our hours are probably going to go to 12 to 14. So we're here. We haven't got a clear answer. One of the answers we got was travel. I guess some PAs didn't want to travel. And then the second time we met, it was overstaffed. So we haven't got a clear answer. And I know the hours are not set in stone yet from getting cut, but a lot of us made sacrifices. I left my other job from City of Temple City and to put the school district first, to work just for you guys and go to school. And this changes my plans. I know some of the others also got their hours reduced from different jobs just to make commitment to you guys. And we haven't got a clear answer yet, right? This letter says our hours are 8 to 3, where it's various. Some are traveling from Emperor to La Rosa, others are going to Cloverly and Longman. So we just want to know a clear answer where we don't want our hours cut. We love the way the new program is. I don't know why it's getting cut. We just want a clear answer. I know in our meeting we had with Ms. Makowicz, she mentioned the cabinet or something. They're the ones that made the decision. And then the answer that I got was, these are the hours, take it or leave it. And then that's, to me, a slap in the face, because I put you guys first. And then she gave the answer, well, we can cut your hours anytime. We just need to give you 10 days. So us getting the answer, this information, the second day, kind of just threw everybody off. And we just want to know why. And hopefully it can get resolved. But I think that's about it.
All right, thank you. We'll have somebody get back to you with that information. We can't address it right now tonight. It's not on the agenda. Oh, okay. You get to- All right. Oh. So I'm wrong. There is an item in the consent agenda on this, and that'll be an opportunity for us to maybe get more information at that time as well. Talk about it a little bit. All right, thank you, Don. Moving along to item number 12, district updates. We'll start first with the business services and Marianne Sorrell. Marianne?
Good evening. The first update is related to grad night. Site and facility services team members will be meeting with Mrs. Centeno this Friday. They will be moving grad night materials requested from the grad night bin to the shed, and these materials are for upcoming scheduled work parties. The storage evaluation at Temple City High School is making good progress, and we will be able to come back to the board at a future board meeting to go through the details of the current status and possible options for addressing the overall needs at the site. Last year, there was an Assembly Bill number 746, and it was related to water sampling pardon me, for lead at schools. So each of the water companies that services the district did those tests as they were to do them. And we've had a few questions lately from parents at different sites asking about the lead in the water. So I'm going to get those posted on the website so they'll be available for anyone to look. We have multiple water companies servicing the district. I believe it's 5. So all the reports will be there and they'll reference which school they tested. Crossing guards, business services will be taking the lead in this area on a go-forward basis. So we are preparing a schedule that divides the crossing guards by location and then which contract covers them. Some are provided by the city and the rest are provided by the district. So when someone calls in with an issue on a certain intersection, we know if we need to contact the city for assistance or if we need to reach out to our vendor that we're under contract with. Measure S update. At Temple City High School Phase 1B, the district will be taking over the use of the softball field midweek. There were 2 items left to be done. They're supposed to be completed by tomorrow. We'll inspect those after they're finished and make sure that they're acceptable before we turn it over to students for use. Cloverleaf, DSA required structural work in the front area, and that will be starting on the 12th tomorrow. Major items on the punch list are the installation of window shades, and they're on order and scheduled to be installed upon delivery. We don't have a delivery date from the vendor yet, but we're expecting in the next couple of weeks. The thermostats were relocated to address the room temperature issue that some of the staff has been mentioning. And the furniture delivery is 4 to 5 weeks out. They have about a 12-week order time and delivery time for this furniture. La Rosa Building A, the structural concrete work is to be completed early next week. The framing is starting and the concrete is completed. The metal stud framing is coming along and should be completed by next week. And in Building B, they're hanging drywall and taping. The restroom will be available for use and functional next week, and the exterior stucco patch will be starting next week as well. We will be coming back to the schedule for you, specifically what's happening each month between now and the end of December. Batelicu hasn't completed that quite yet, but we're on schedule at this time to have everything completed. There have been some comments or some thoughts in the community that the cafeteria won't be ready until year end, and I think the miscommunication is for us, year end is June, and for the contractor, year end is December, but it is scheduled to finish with everything else. One more thing. The last item is related to refinancing of the bond. As everyone knows, interest rates are very low right now, and we're exploring opportunities for the board to consider refinancing the bonds that are issued at this point. And what that does is makes more money available to go toward projects. So we'll be bringing more information at a future board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Moving right along to educational services, Dr. Joshua Porter. Josh, what do you have for us?
Thank you. First off, just want to let you know we're pleased to share that Pearson Publications was able to set up our board display case just outside the room here for public viewing of the materials related to the ELA adoption at the secondary level. They'll be on display at the district office through the end of November until we transition into the new pilot, which will start beginning in January, and then we'll replace those publications. Those publications will be on display at both the middle and high school as well, by the end of this week. We're going to give a more in-depth display for them than the materials they originally gave us today to set it up. Just kind of a quick highlight on those publications. They, just a reminder, they're aligned to our state standards and our California approved adoption list. Throughout the pilot period, all teachers will continue to receive the appropriate ELA instruction. We want to ensure that there are no gaps in the instructional quality or content with the instructional program at the school site. The teachers will continue to receive training in the program with ongoing support. Those who are still needing refreshers, we do have a train the trainers on site, so everyone's been trained to help others through that process with continued professional development throughout the year. In addition, the intermediate and high school English teachers, they do meet regularly with their teams throughout the pilot period. They will discuss and evaluate the pilot materials on an ongoing basis, and much like last year, we'll be presenting some findings from the staff and make a recommendation to you guys in spring 2020. In addition to the pilot, the Tcusd elementary schools are going to continue with their commitment to build a positive behavior intervention support programs at each of their site. For those of you who are not familiar with PBIS, it's part of our continuum of services intended to support all of our students, offering proactive strategies for defining, teaching, and supporting appropriate student behaviors in both the classroom and non-classroom setting. Each site team will continue the training with the Orange County Department of Ed. They're going to continue collaborating with those schools and build upon already existing programs. So that brings us up to date today.
Great, thank you, Josh. And then moving to Personnel Services, Dr. Monica McAbeth.
Well, we got some good news today. Our LCAP was accepted by LACO and our budget. So I want to say thank you to Marianne and her team, and I would like to say thank you to the unions and the parents and the students that were on the LCAP committee. We had no revisions, so they accepted as is. So that was a very positive thing that happened today. Academic calendar, I know we have community members and parents asking for us to consider moving our academic calendar. Just to let everyone know, it is part of the negotiations process. The teachers union, we meet with them on Monday. It's part of the negotiation items. We're working together to come up with a new academic calendar for the next 2 years. And we will present that to you when we come to a compromise. We are also in open enrollment for health and welfare benefits for all eligible employees. It runs until the beginning of October. It runs until October 4th. Staff has two options. They can enroll online, or they can meet with the health benefits from American Fidelity to go over their options. We also have mandated reporter that the links are finally coming out tomorrow, and that will run through October, so staff has a chance to finish it. And most important, right now we have a principal opening at Longden. Monica Lukesh has been named the interim principal. We have met with staff to get input on the next steps, and a parent survey will go out starting tomorrow to get input from parents and families. Just to give you a brief timeline, the position will close next week. We plan to start the selection and interview process on the 18th, and I have to thank all three unions for helping me create a balanced interview panel. We hope to finish the process by the 19th and present to board a candidate by the 25th. So Longden is fully we get the Longden space filled with someone well qualified to be able to support the students and the staff. Last but not least, the PE aid situation. We have a meeting with all PE aides who will be coming out to the sites to discuss hours and next steps as promised. So we look forward to touching base with you tomorrow.
Great, thank you, Monica. Moving on to item 13, bargaining unit comments. We'll start first with TCEA. Ellen, do you have anything you want to share then? Ellen? That's right. CSEA 105, Robin? Yeah, Robin, yeah.
So I didn't write anything, I didn't really plan on doing this, but I think it's time I do this. And I want you all to know I'm not bagging on any one person, I am not trashing any one person. But things are not great in the district, and you need to know it. I have a slight clue today that the board really doesn't know how unhappy the employees are at this point. I am getting calls constantly. Monday I had 4 calls from employees that were very upset, and 2 walk-ins to talk to me. I mean, I have my job to do too, and but I can't turn people like that away. This PE thing is a cluster, okay? It should have been, and I know, Monica, it's a nightmare. I would not want the job of making this schedule for anything in the world. But we had to change, and they all know, we had to change the program. We understand that. We're not stupid. We understand when the law says what the law says, the district has to follow it. And we have not been compliant in that for a long, long time. We're fine with that. But don't jack people around. We've had, I should say you've had, since what, April, May? You knew this was gonna happen. You guys knew, right? We all knew. And then 2 weeks before school starts, they get this letter, and then school starts and the letter goes away and it's something new. I just don't understand, and I don't think they understand, why this wasn't done way in advance. And I know you were busy hiring, and you were busy doing this and busy doing that. I'm busy too. Everybody's busy. But your employees are a priority here. And I know the classified staff feels very, very, I want to watch my words here, not valued whatsoever. And there was a time when we did. I think you guys would agree with that. But right now, sometimes I'm honest to a fault, but I'm gonna tell you what I hear, okay? The district office is all about money. They don't care about us anymore. We're their little worker bees. Just get stuff done, get it done right. You can be replaced. It's a corporation. It's all about the money. People don't matter. That's what I'm hearing. And it's everywhere. And I want you to know, they don't know the people in the district office. You know, we used to know everybody. This is Temple City, and you guys don't get it. Matt gets it. Matt's been around forever. I've been around for longer than you can imagine. Tessie and I have known each other since our 30-year-old boys went to kindergarten. You know, there's a huge connection in this community. You guys that didn't grow up here, didn't go to school here, all that, I don't think you quite understand how close-knit we are. And we are very dysfunctional. I will admit that. There's a lot of love-hate relationships in this town. But you know what? When push comes to shove, we're there for each other. We just are. It's a weird Temple City thing. And I'm really worried about it, because what I'm hearing is they don't care about us anymore. We will never be the same. We will never, ever be the same, because they're not introducing themselves to us. None of us know them. They don't care what we're doing. They move us around randomly, change our hours, give our hours back, do this, do that. And it's not a good situation. And you have a lot of really unhappy employees out there. So, you know, the PE aides, I started in this district 23 years ago as a PE aide, okay? It's one of the most underappreciated jobs in the district. They are out there sweating in the heat with 100 sweaty, stinky little kids. It's not a glamorous job, and you know your teachers don't want to be out there doing it. They need to be appreciated for what they do. You have to have a PE program, and they run it. Yes, you have your certificated people, and they are fabulous, and everybody loves the new program. But they deserve to know that they are valued, that they have a reason for being here, and to go out and quit other jobs because of their dedication to the district. And now what? Now what do? They're part-time people making piddly money. I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but I sure as hell can. I worry about them. And what does Junior do? Go back to the city now and say, please, please give me my job back because the district screwed up? That's not good. It's a bad situation. And you know how word gets around here. Everybody knows. Everybody knows this is going on with them. Everybody. So everybody feels it, everybody's unhappy. Monica, this isn't about you. Monica has taken care of some situations for me this week that I'm very, very grateful for. She's been over backwards for a few employees. This isn't all about personnel, it's about everybody. And these people deserve better. How long have you guys been with the district?
18 years.
Yeah. These aren't people that walked in 6 months ago off the street and got a, jerky little job. They're dedicated to the district, even though they're probably one of the lowest paid employees in the district. So what I'm asking is to start, I wish people would think just a little bit more with their hearts and not always with their heads and not always about the mighty dollar. I get that the budget is a pain, and I get that it's difficult. I wouldn't want any of your jobs. But at the same time, you gotta think about the people, and your people aren't happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Last bargaining unit, CSEA, P23, LC Jesse Pierce. Okay. Moving on to item 14, student board member comments. Sam, what do you have for Sam?
So good evening, everyone. Last week the high school had its first assembly of the year, and it was Marvel themed. We received very positive feedback on that, so that's great. Our introduction of the new system called 5-Star Students was also well received. It's a system where you can track points of people who participate in activities, and it motivates the students, and we give prizes to we randomly raffle prizes away. So I think it's really motivating the students to participate in school activities. ASB also supported PTA yesterday by going to the dine out at BJ's. Today was senior sunrise, and it was a nice way for students to make memories at the start of the year. So now that school is in full motion, it has been also brought to my attention by several students that they have some concerns about the unfinished construction at the high school. There's at the front of the school, there's an uncompleted ramp, and it makes it difficult for students to go back and forth classes, and it's just kind of tedious at times. And another request I have gotten from students is possibly the foundation of a badminton team, and hopefully there will be students coming in the near future to discuss this topic further with the board. As of now, ASB is currently in the process of chartering clubs for the upcoming year, and club day will be on the 19th, which is next Thursday, and students will be able to showcase their clubs to all the students on campus. I know that was a lot of information, but those are all the updates for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Moving on now to board member comments. We'll start tonight with member Espinoza. Melissa, what do you have?
All right, I wanted to share that I went to the back to school nights at Cloverleaf Oak and Longden, and I'll be going to Emperor tomorrow. And I want to thank the staff and the administrators for putting together an informative and engaging back to school night events. I also want to wish all those hardworking sports teams that have kicked off their seasons. I think we've got football, volleyball, cross country, water polo, golf, tennis. I want to wish them all good luck. Could relay the message to them too there. So yeah, they started early, and they're just jumping into their season, so happy about that. I also attended the first 2 Masters in Governance classes this past weekend, Friday and Saturday. Really informative. One was kind of an overview of governance, and the other one was policy and judicial review. A couple of interesting themes that out of the discussions with all the other board members, there's probably maybe, I want to say maybe 60 different board members from all over California there. And a couple of themes that were top of mind included school culture and climate, and making sure that, we're looking at ways to support the mental health of our students. So I was encouraged, because I know we've had some discussions about that, and I hope maybe in a future meeting we could hear what's going on around the district with the students at the sites in terms of mental health support. And then the other one that I thought was really interesting as well is offering ethnic studies as a way to build value and inclusion of all races and cultures, despite it's not mandated by the Ed Code, it's not mandated by any legislation, although there's some legislation that's in the works, may not pass. But many school districts are thinking of implementing it anyway, just considering, you know, our environment these days and the negativity and the news and all of that. So we're building just kind of a cultural awareness. So those were two interesting themes. The last thing I want to kind of just mention is I know that fall is the season for fundraising, and many people are and groups are fundraising to support our students. And it would be great if some of those that are, you know, open to public could be on the district calendar. So dine outs, because when I look at, you know, what's going on in the district and I want to support it, I'll go to that calendar. And, you know, if the dine outs could be put there or whatever fundraising events, I would love to see it so that we could have an opportunity to go. I know all of us look and see what's on the calendar. So it's a great place to get a broader, potential broader participation. So I think Marie, we talked about, if you want to get something on the calendar, just email Marie with the information and she can get it on the calendar. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Moving on to Dr. Michael Lynn. Mike, again.
Thank you, Board President Matt Smith. I would like to take this opportunity to honor the fallen heroes of September 11th, 2001, and pay tribute to all the men and women in uniform making the ultimate sacrifice in protecting our freedom. I would also like to thank Matt Byers for tonight's presentations showcasing the Brighter Side Australia trip. Hearing your stories of compassion and a shared human experience half a world away is truly very moving and inspiring. Our students are indeed great ambassadors, representing the best of not only Temple City, but America. Finally, kudos to the classroom teachers and school sites for successfully kicking off the new school year with your back-to-school nights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And then moving on to Member Georgina Dunn.
Thank you. I also attended, since our last meeting, back-to-school nights at Cloverly, Temple City High School, Oak, and Longden. And want to congratulate all the schools for what a great job they're doing welcoming their students and families back to school. I attended the first home football game Friday night. Didn't quite end up the way we would have liked it, but there was really a great energy there and a good sized crowd, so it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the rest of the home games. Last week, Matt and I attended the ad hoc meeting with the City of Temple City, and we discussed various ways that the city and the school district could collaborate, coordinate, cooperate with each other. I think when we work together, we can better serve the needs of our community, and so I was really, felt good after the meeting that we're moving in the right direction and that perhaps we can make some real significant progress in the next year in working with the city. This morning I attended the 9/11 ceremony at Emperor School. It was very nice, very well organized. The children were very well behaved. I was surprised they could stand there that long. I was kind of getting antsy standing there. But they did a nice job. They had several children who spoke. And I thought what was really nice about it was that it was relatable to the children, because when you think about it, I don't think we have anybody in our school now that was alive when 9/11 actually happened. But they relate it to our first responders and the people that protect us, and so that the children could relate to it. And then it wasn't part of the ceremony, but they collected cookies from the families, and they put together trays of cookies, and I think they took them to, 20 different trays, and they took them to our local police stations, fire stations, the Forestry Service, and the CHP. So that's really nice that they can do that and represent Temple City Unified that way. I also attended a couple of grad night fundraisers, and I really like Melissa's idea because I'm more than happy to support fundraising for any of the groups in our district, but lots of times I don't know about them, so I think that's a great idea. And I want to congratulate Matt Byers. He always does such a wonderful job, and it's really a great kudo for our district to have someone like him in our district. Announcement, on September 21st, Relay for Life is having a rummage sale at Taco Treat in Arcadia. So if anybody has any items they'd like to donate it, we'll be happy to take those. Or if you want to come shopping, please come shopping, and all the money raised goes to Relay for Life. And last but not least, I want to remind everybody that September 18th is the dedication of the pool at Temple City High School, and also the State of the District. So I hope everyone will come out and participate in those activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And I will go next. I don't really have much to add, if anything. I did have the opportunity to attend back-to-school nights at Cloverly and Oak. Unfortunately, I had a conflict with the one at the high school, and last night I was recovering from some surgery on my foot, so I wasn't able to make Longdon. As Donna mentioned, we had I thought it was a very productive meeting next door, across the street actually, with the city, in terms of looking at things we can do together. Some issues came up, actually I know at Longdon about the Stars Club and whatnot, so we discussed those, and I think we're all interested very much in working together to find some resolution. Let's see, I'd like to commend, I know that a number of the school sites had 9/11 ceremonies today of various kinds. I did not attend any, but I think it's great that that came up and was celebrated appropriately. Back in 2001, I'm trying to recall if 9/11, it was a Tuesday. I don't recall if that was supposed to be the first day of school.
It was.
Yeah. So we had to deal with that immediately. We actually had a board meeting the next evening that we abbreviated. But anyway, it's been a long time, but it's still a tragedy. And as Mike had mentioned, it's important that we honor and respect the people who lost their lives not only on that day, but in fighting the war afterwards to try to bring peace. Kind of a oxy situation. Great news about Matt Byers and the Brighter Side Singers and the trip they took to New Zealand and Australia. Very thrilled to see that. Looks like it was a very worthwhile experience. And was really thrilled when I saw on Facebook, I think it was Monday, about the recognition that I was going to be receiving on the Kelly Clarkson show. So had a chance to watch that last night when I got home from the hospital. And then lastly, I would like to acknowledge the 9 people in tonight's agenda who donated $22,145 to the district. And that included individuals and PTA organizations. Okay, that's it. I'm going to move on now to member Norberg. Ken?
Just a couple of quick ones. I too, hopefully people will remember 9/11 and they'll remember it for the next 20 years or more, and the people who made the sacrifices. Also, there's a rumor only, haven't got confirmed, but the summer school is in trouble in one sense. A lot of people are starting to use the computer programs, which are cheaper, to do some of their studies on the computer instead of us, using us as a source. And it'll affect all the schools eventually, whether it's next year or the next 4 or 5 years. But sooner or later, students will start, I think, using the computer and taking classes. The question's gonna be is whether we accept those classes or not. We as a city, we as a school district accept the classes so that we graduate from Temple City Unified School District. Or whether the classes are just fluff and they don't qualify for, we don't accept them. Also, it was nice to see Matt Bowers give a presentation. I think the thing about the missions and the forward-looking comments were very appropriate for his group and for us to take a hard look at. And also, I attended the open houses at three of the schools, and I was impressed. I sit through some of the classrooms where the teachers gave presentations. I was always impressed about how easy it was for the students to interact with the teachers, or at least the ones I met with. I'm not saying that all of them that way, but they all had email addresses, and they all were willing to, the ones I talked to, were all willing to meet with the students at any time, as long as they had an appointment. And the appointment was easy to get. All you had to do was walk up and ask for an appointment at the end of the day or at lunch. So it was kind of nice to see the open houses at the schools, and I think it was a great success. Some of them seem to have more attendance than others, but yeah, that's it.
Great, thanks, Ken. And I'm sorry, Dr. Fricker, before I go to Kim, I do want to let everybody know that I had planned to adjourn our meeting tonight in memory of those who lost their lives in 9/11. And I did have a quote I found on Facebook this afternoon that I was going to share at that time, but I think I'll share it now because we've talked about it. It says, the best way we could ever honor the loss on 9/11 is to live each day like September 12th. There is no race, gender, or political side. In the end, the only thing that matters is each other. Americans first, America forever. So very meaningful to me. Dr. Fricker, Ken.
Kind of leads into what I was going to say. I think visiting Emperor Elementary School this morning was a distinct honor, and watching the assembly and the students who spoke very eloquently about what they had learned over the past couple weeks about 9/11 and about our country and our nation. And I just want to thank Ms. Myra Riddell for the invitation to come out and see that tribute, and it was very, very touching and well done. So thank you, Emperor, thank you, Myra. 9/11 marks a very significant day in American history, and on that day we lost a tremendous amount as a nation, but we also gained a tremendous amount as a nation. I think that we found courage, and we found hope, and we found a community that was much larger than our own. And in doing so, and as we take this time and we remember and we teach the next generation, I think it's really important to also remember that one of the most depicting pictures from 9/11 for me was when you saw all of the ash fall, and you couldn't tell, one race from another. You couldn't tell one face from another, but you could tell the heartfelt impact that had on the people of the city and the people in this nation, across our nation, and across the world. And when the young man was talking about his trip across the sea and how meaningful that was to sing to a woman who had stage 4 cancer, it was kind of odd that those two things happened on the same day. And if our students can go across the sea and sing to a woman with stage 4 cancer and have that profound impact on somebody they don't know, and gives them, as he would say, that brief moment of time of happiness and peace where they don't have to think about the struggle they're going through, I think that's a pretty remarkable and amazing thing. I know that story that he told will have profound impact on myself. But I hope that also on the work that we do and the traditions that we do keep alive and stay alive and make sure that we foster throughout our city. And I'm glad that our students get to be ambassadors, not only to Temple City, but also to lands far away. So I do want to go back to say thank you to Myra and all of the staff that put on that amazing assembly in the 5th grade class. It was truly a remarkable morning. I'm also
also glad that I've gotten to go to every back-to-school night. I want to thank all of the staffs that have worked so diligently to put on all of the back-to-school nights and the presentations that happen in the classrooms and the meticulous care of the campuses. It was a very nice experience. I do look forward to Emperor tomorrow. You haven't been forgotten, you just haven't come yet. And so we will be there as well to support the staff and, you know, meet the community and meet the families. And I'm really touched at how many students come to our back-to-school night and truly engage in that night, as well as the parents. And many of our campuses go out of their way to accommodate the students who come to the campuses on those evenings. So I look forward to Emperor tomorrow. In coming to the back-to-school nights, I also want to thank the PTA groups for their, oftentimes they have meetings on the same night, and it's their way to kind of kickstart their campaign of volunteerism, so I'd like to thank them as well. And then finally, I just want to reiterate that the State of the District and the pool dedication is on September 18th at the high school, so we look forward to that. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Kim. And then written communication. I actually have one. It's the letter Monica referenced during her remarks, and I'll just read some quick excerpts. That's from the Los Angeles County Office of Education. It says, Los Angeles County Superintendent of Schools has completed our review of the Temple City Unified School District's LCAP for fiscal year 2019-2020. The three criteria for LCAP approval include: 1, adherence to the State Board of Education template; 2, sufficient expenditures and budget to implement LCAP; and 3, adherence to State Board of Education expenditure regulations. Through the review and oversight process, it has been determined that your district's LCAP has met all 3 criteria. This letter serves as your district's notification of approval. And I'll skip the rest. All right. Thank you. Seems like my next one. Okay, moving on to the action portion of our agenda. Starting first with the administration section, item 18 calls for a motion to receive board policies for second reading and approval for Board Bylaw 9130. Board committees and Board Bylaw 9140, board representatives may have a motion and second to receive and approve.
I'll move that we approve both the recommended board policies.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from member Georgino and a second from member Lynn. Any comments or questions?
I just excuse myself because I was one of the participants, I guess.
Okay.
We're all participants.
No, I'm the one being removed. So I excuse myself.
Okay, so when you call for the vote, you're going to abstain or vote no?
Well, I will vote.
Let me call for the vote. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays and abstentions?
Okay, that's.
Okay, so we have a 4-0-1 vote. Thank you. Approved. Moving on to item 19A, calls for a motion to approve the opening of the public hearing for the 2018-19 Reserve for Economic Uncertainties. I may have a motion and a second to open this hearing, please.
I would like to make a motion.
So we have a motion from member Lynn and a second from member Nolenberg. We are now conducting a public hearing with anybody in the public who wishes to come up. Oh, actually, do you want to say anything first, Mary Ann? I'm sorry.
So this has been a requirement since 1516. It was a change to the ed code, and primarily there was a lot of conversation happening in Sacramento that they wanted to reduce everyone's reserve to 3%. And it got pretty far along in the process, and then it stalled out. So that never has passed, but that's what brought this up. I will say Temple City has historically done a great job of keeping a nice reserve. When a lot of districts were doing furlough days, and quite a bit of furlough days, this district never had to do that. And then the second page gives an explanation of what some of those reserve items are that are beyond the 3% requirement by the state.
Okay, so now if there are any members of the public who wish to comment, you can come up and do so. This, okay?
I have something to say.
Please, come on.
I would just ask, or maybe suggest a discussion. I believe that the tradition, I don't know if it's a specific policy, but it's for the board to maintain the amount required by the state, which I believe is 2% currently, but then an additional thing on top of that, so that we call the board reserve. And I would just ask all of you now to just maybe either talk a little bit about that or maybe give some background as to why the board has been maintaining that fixed amount of 3% in addition to what the state requires.
Thank you. So the way this process works is different than my previous tenure in the school board. We hold the public hearings tonight and we actually take the action at the next board meeting. But I can tell you that what you suggested is included in the plan. Okay, with that, I will go ahead and ask for a motion to close the public hearing. I have a motion and a second, please.
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, so the motion from Member Espinoza and a second from Member Georgino. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ken? Ken?
Yeah.
You vote? Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 20, calls for a motion to approve the 2018 and 19 unaudited actual financial reports. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion from Member Nolenberg and a second from Member Lynn, and I know Mary Ann has a presentation prepared for us.
Give me just a minute.
Marianne, is that the thermostat behind you?
I've been fussing with it, I'll try again, I'll keep playing.
So, if you'll give me just a minute, there's only one magic way to fix this, if you don't mind me texting somebody. The new system is electronically controlled by room. See, I'm freezing, so. What?
Oh, wow.
So I apologize.
Oh, you're smart.
Everywhere. Just finish this and just reduce the time more, please. Thank you. Pardon? Oh, I'm gonna take more than a minute, sorry.
Why don't we hold off on this item and I'll move on to item 21 for personnel purposes? Okay. So item 21 calls for a motion to accept CSEA 105 2019-2020 interest statements for negotiations with the district. Make a motion and a second to approve, please.
I'll motion to approve.
A motion from Member Espinoza and a second from Member Nolenberg. Are there any comments or questions on this item before we vote? Okay, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries 5-0. And you need another minute or so, Mary, or?
We usually respond in about 5 minutes, so hopefully in about 10 minutes you'll notice the difference.
Okay, are you ready for your presentation?
I am.
Okay, please go ahead. So we're moving back to item number 20.
Thank you. So tonight we'll be discussing the unaudited actuals report. The unaudited actuals are a report that we prepare each year, and it compares the actual results of the fiscal year, so this would be 18-19, and it compares it against the 18-90 budget that was submitted. This is due to LACO on the 15th of September, we approved, and this is done by every district in the state, and everyone uses the same software, which is the SAC software. So one of the reports you have in your binder is under tab 3, and that's the actual report that you're you're approving. What I like to do to make life a little bit simpler, because it's a pretty difficult report to get through, is you each have this data summary, which is 11 by 17, and that's a summary of what's in this actual report. And now we'll go through and talk about all the variances. So the first thing that we'll look at, if we look at this spreadsheet, is the top section is revenue, and that's laid out just like this actual report. Revenue is always the top section, and the second section is expenditures. So the left-hand column is the operating budget at 1819. The reason it's called an operating budget is because the first budget that goes in in June, there might be changes during the year. There might be a staffing change, we might get more revenue in, we do carryover, and that requires budget adjustments, and we bring them to you each month at 1 or 2 board meetings. So the operating budget includes any adjustment made during the year. So it's not the original budget that goes in and is approved, but it shows all changes in between. So the first item you'll see there is LCFF revenue, which is the local control funding formula, and that's the majority of state funds that come in, about 87%. And you'll notice that we have a bit of a difference. It's $209,000 higher. So the way LCFF works is it's based on your ADA. So it's not enrollment, but it's on ADA. And they do it based on your P2 numbers that are turned into the state and then trued up at the end of the year when the annual goes in. So if we have increasing enrollment or increasing ADA, the state will give us that additional money. If you have declining enrollment, less than you had expected, then what they'll do is use the prior year's ADA. So they don't punish you if you have declining enrollment because you set your budgets with one expectation and it's difficult to change those if you have a big drop. We do have declining enrollment. It's not significant at this point, but we have neighboring districts that have very significant declining enrollment. So it gives you a year to sort of review and look at your programs and staffing to adjust. But again, if it goes up, they give you extra. Yes, sir.
Significant is defined as what? Some percentage?
I'm sorry?
Significant is defined as what, a percentage of total enrollment?
We have some districts around us that have a 10 to 12% declining enrollment. And when you get to that level, it's significant. And we are all working very hard as a cabinet to look at ideas of how to attract students because ADA is what drives everything. So through programs and other offerings that we can give, we're working on that very hard to look at things to draw more students in. The federal funds are up about $237,000, and that's a couple items. One is title carryover, so Title I, II, and III are all restricted. And at the end of the year, federal funds are handled differently from an accounting perspective than state funds. So if you have federal funds and you don't spend them all, you book the revenue in the current year, but if you don't spend it all, you have to recognize the revenue again. So if you carry over $100,000 from the prior year, you have to record it as if it's new revenue. It's just a federal requirement from accounting guidelines, but it's not that way with state. So we had about $150,000 that wasn't spent the prior year, so it shows this revenue. The other is we have a program called SMON, and it's related to funding we get when our LVNs or our principals refer students for Medicare services. So you have an underprivileged child that maybe needs some kind of help, they get referred to a doctor that takes Medicare, then Medicare gives us some money back. So they don't always stay quite on top of their audits. They're often 6 and 7 years behind. So you'll get adjustments. This year we had adjustments for like a 5-year span. They call it backcasting. So sometimes they give you a little bit more money than they gave you the first time, and sometimes they take money back. But then that was about $100,000 to the positive for us. So that's that source. The other state revenue, the change we had was related to unrestricted lottery. And they changed from 139.38 per ADA to 163.73. So that gave us a little bit more money. That goes out, generally speaking, to the sites. It's about $53,000. Now, other local revenue, when you look at that, you're like, wow, that's a big change. And it is. It's about $1.1 million. So I want to talk through that. We don't ever budget for donations or facilities rent or anything like that because we don't know who's going to come and use our facilities. We don't know who's going to make a donation. So we just wait until the end of the year and then we record that revenue. So we had $411,500 in donations, fees for lost books, field trips, that kind of thing. And then we also had $291,000 more of interest on our funds at Lego because interest rates have been going up. And we don't find that out till the end of the year, that's when they true that up as well. Facilities use, $251,000 came in this year. And we had about $182,000 extra from SELPA, and that's for our regional classes that we host for other districts, and also the apportionment that SELPA gives us for our own students. Any questions?
Marianne, for the local revenues, would ASB revenues be considered local?
We don't get any of them. We got the budget, and we don't get any money from ASB, and we don't get any money to ASB either.
So ASB is not considered local revenue. They keep their own books separate. They're not part of the general fund. If you'd be interested at a future meeting for us to bring some ASB information, we'd be happy to do that, but that's not part of the general fund. If it were, it would be in local, but it's not. Okay, so now we're gonna go through expenditures, which is the bottom half. The first item you see is certificated salaries, and you'll see that it's under budget by $1.4 million, which is a lot, and we generally don't have that big of a variance. So I want to walk through all the moving pieces that occurred in this past year. As the board is very aware, we've had quite a bit of turnover in staff. We've had positions that have been open for large parts of the year. So the first one is we had 2 less teachers in elementary school in 18-19 than we had in 17-18. The overload for the 4A music program was less. The staffing was handled differently. Ed services had less professional development, which meant less sub time and less expenses there, and that was primarily related to staffing changes in ed services. The other item is principals and assistant principals who were not here the full year, and not to point you out, Dr. Burke, but you were not here the entire year, so the budget for a superintendent shows in the 1,000s, and the expenses for the consultant shows in the 5,000s. So that's where there's a difference there. That makes sense? Okay. The next item is classified salaries, and that's down $114,000 compared to budget, and that's related to, we had a receptionist gone for part of the year. Technology used less summer hours than they have in prior years. The purchasing director was gone for a period of time, and M&O had several openings. We had someone retire with a medical issue, and we had a couple of people transition out. It took a few months to find suitable replacements. And then when you look at benefits, that's total benefits, so that's going to include certificated and classified, and whenever those salary amounts, vary up or down, the employee benefits are going to go with that. And just so everyone knows, employee benefits doesn't mean just health and welfare, it's all statutory. So it's all the district employer taxes they get paid for staff. They're all into that benefit section. So books and supplies were under budget, and that was related to, in the title area, Title 1, 2, and 3, which are restricted, we had about $70,000 that wasn't spent, so that money will carry over into this next year. We'll be bringing the carryover report to you next meeting, and we'll go through in detail by resource, what was spent, what wasn't, and then we'll be doing a budget adjustment. As I mentioned before, that federal revenue has to be recorded as revenue again this year because it wasn't spent, and then we'll put an offsetting expense into the budget, making it available to sites and ed services. We've been working really, really hard on janitorial supplies and monitoring those, and we were able to reduce that expense by $41,000, keeping the same services. We have a vendor that we're pressuring really hard to reduce our pricing. So that has worked out really well this year. We had state grants. I'm going to go through these 3 with you. The first one was CTE, and CTE a few years ago had a grant, and the way it worked is the state had a 1-to-1 match. So they gave us X amount of money, and then the district had to agree to match 1-to-1. The next year it was 1.5-to-1, and the final year, last year was 2-to-1. So they are no longer giving us funds, although there's a lot of talk about more funds coming, but we don't have it yet. So right now what we have to do is take 2 times what that grant was and take it out of unrestricted money and set it aside. So there's still $194,000 left from the grant that will come back to you next week or next meeting as well as a carryover. That's $194,000. Then we have money the state gave us last year for classified professional development, and we have 27,000 that wasn't spent. Again, that will be carried over into this next year to be programmed out and spent on classified. And the final one is there's another grant of $175,000 for low-performing students. So Ed Services is working on a plan to develop for professional development for that specific need, because that grant is specified only for that use. Services and other are down $430,000. One of the major reasons there is we've had very high legal fees the last couple of years related to various items. And so we weren't quite sure what was going to happen this year, if those things would wrap up or if they'd be continuing. So we budgeted a little bit high for that. So we saved $197 on that. Contracted services were down $154,000. And we have state grants. Part of the state grant is unrestricted and part is restricted. So we have some more classified PD and restricted and some low performance student money there as well for another $41,000. So this next slide talks about reserve, and the simplest way I can ever think to explain reserve is if you get $100 in and you only spend it $80, you have $20 sort of in savings or in a reserve. So this details out what's in our reserve. So at the top is revolving cash, and we keep that at a steady $15,000. That's basically a checkbook we have upstairs in case of an emergency. We don't use it very often, but if something comes up or someone demands payment on delivery, we have a little bit there to use. The next line is the designated 3% reserve. That's the state required reserve of 3%. And that, whenever any of these numbers I'm talking about with percentages, it's the total expense for the year. And then the third line is the designated 2% reserve, and that's the board's additional reserve of 2%. We have legally restricted reserves. So those are items or funding that has to only be spent on a certain item or certain kind of expense, like titles or any kinds of grants. The next one is LCFF targeted. That is money that we still have from prior years that has to be spent on the unduplicated students, so like free and reduced lunch, EL, and foster students. The next line is the unrestricted lottery, so that's money we have left from prior years. And then I'm going to detail out the one-time funds. So we got one-time funds, I think 3 years in a row from the governor. The new governor isn't quite as generous yet, I'm hoping. And so what we're doing is we're splitting up the one-time funds to cover the Wonders adoption. Part of it's for the 19-20 expense, part of it's for the 21-22 expense. The next line is restricted lottery. Again, that's restricted lottery money that was from a prior year. That can really only be used for limited items like textbooks or educational material specific. It can't be used for professional development. It can't be used for salaries or anything like that. Then I mentioned these two, the low performance grant, the classified professional development. Those are the two grants that we received money for last year. So that's money we can pull forward this year and use for those specified areas. And then the unfunded OPEB liability, this is confusing sometimes to people. Every year the board so far has put $250,000, and so you'll see that in the budget, but when you look at the unaudited actuals, it's gone, and it's like, where did that go? So what happens is at year end, we close our books, we have to actually take that $250,000 cash and take it out of Fund 1 and move it into the OPEB fund. So it's just a transaction between funds. And then the bottom line is the unallocated reserve. And the unallocated reserve, it's important to understand that all of it's not available for salaries. Some is, some isn't. It depends on what the initial funding was for. Anything that's a one-time or a grant can't be used for salaries because it can't be for any ongoing expense. One thing CBOs say a lot is if it eats, you can't use it. So it can't be like for a human being if it's a one-time kind of thing or a specified grant. So I have two slides about CalSTRS and CalPERS. I'm sorry to bore you with it, but I wanted to show it two ways to make sure I'm explaining it properly. So the first three lines are about CalSTRS, and it goes year by year. Second line explains what the employer contribution is. And you can see in 15-16, it was 10.73, and 21-22, it's projected to be 18.10, which is a very significant growth over not too many years. The next line, what I'm trying to show you is not the total expense, but the additional expense year over year. So when you go from 15-16 to 16-17, that slightly less than 2% costs an extra $533 in the following year. But I'll show you my next slide will be a cumulative. The next section is CalPERS, exact same setup. And then the final line is showing you the total expense year over year for the two. And then the very last line is the total additional expense to the district is $3.8 million over that time frame. And we'll talk at another meeting, we talk about budget. I'm gonna take like section by section and get a little deeper into it for you. They don't give us an extra 3.8 every year. They don't give it to that over time. So as these continue to grow exponentially, it makes it very difficult to decide what has to move around to cover that, because these are not optional expenses. The next one is just another graph with the exact same information showing the blue is CalSTRS, the red is CalPERS, and the green is the total. And again, it's the year over year change, not the total change. So that's what I want to give you both to look at. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Go back to the slide on number 4. And at the very end, you have, for CalPERS, you have 128,000, or 128,574. But the year before that, you have 278. Is that in error? Or
No, that's accurate because it's a comparison of the growth year over year.
Okay. Oh, okay. Because none of the other ones have that. Okay. All right.
On slide 3, I know you mentioned what we could not use unallocated reserves for, but I wasn't clear on what you could use it for.
What I'd like to do is when I come back with another, I'd like to start doing sort of budget study sessions with you and pull apart and go a little deeper. So I want to explain revenue because there's probably 40-ish sources of revenue. So I'd like to go through them item by item so you know what they're based on and what they can and can't be spent on, and the same with expenses. And then we'll go deeper in this unallocated reserve if that's okay with you. Sure. Thank you.
An observation, I guess. You don't count anything that we don't have in hand, right?
Say it one more time, please.
You don't count any money that we don't have in hand. None of the budgets are, we don't project anything that we got last year or the year before or something that we may get this year or next year. It's gotta be money that you've already received before you put it in the budget, right?
So that's a yes and no. So the way that the state works is they might tell you at the beginning of the year, for an example, you're going to get $36 million for LCFF, but they don't give us a check of $36 million. They have a spreadsheet for us and it tells us how much percent we're going to get each month. So we don't get it all up front. We have to watch our cash flow very closely to compare what our outgoing expenses are because, for instance, payroll, which is our largest expense, it's pretty steady month over month, but our income is not. So we have to watch our cash flow to make sure we have enough cash in the bank to make all those payments. The second piece is, so for like LCFF, it's based all on our ADA and enrollment projections. Federal revenue, they'll give us some guidance. The last couple of years, they've been sort of snipping away at it, 2 to 3 to 4%, they're reducing it. Some funds are one time or it's a grant for 1 year. So we have to go through, it's not a one answer, it depends on the source of the funding, how we project it, and what it's based on, but it definitely doesn't all come in before the budget's done, no. Does that answer your question? The last pages are just for your reference. It's historical enrollment. So we're showing 2011-12 through 2018-19. The 2018-19 is based on our annual at close, what our enrollment was. So just keep in mind these are enrollment, not ADA. In general, our ADA is 97.4% of enrollment, which is very nice. Everyone should be very proud of that. It does vary by school a little bit and by population, but in general it's about 97.4. So that's the elementary schools. These are the secondary, and this is the Learning Center. And then this is just to give you a little bit of background if you're interested or can't sleep. This will tell you by grade what it is. So it's the total for the grade across all campuses. And you'll notice if you do study it a little bit, you'll see bubbles come through, and we do include that. We have a cohort model to do our projections, and it takes into consideration the bubbles that come through. I have 15 years of data, so I do like a look back of 5 years, I do a look back of 2 years to see what looks reasonable. And that's why sometimes classes vary. There might be a bubble in 3rd grade, so it's going to go through, the next year 3rd grade goes down, 4th grade goes up, 4th down, 5th up. And then at the very last column, in case you're interested, is permits that we have, and that's all permits, regardless of the type of permit that it is.
And that's included in the total?
Pardon me?
Those permit numbers are included in the total?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What do we attribute the increase? It's gone up quite a bit.
Which piece, I'm sorry?
The permit increase.
They have, it's a wonderful school district, and people want to come here. And we want to encourage that, and we're going to do everything we can to get more of them.
And it's offsetting the decline within our own community then?
It's not 100%. It definitely helps, but it's not 100%. But we have some really good ideas I think we're discussing in cabinet that we'll bring back to discuss with you, because it's very important to us to be able to give a good experience to the students. And of course, this drives funding for our major piece.
The permits that are for all the schools?
Yes.
Okay, and where's the adult education class? I didn't see it, the enrollment here.
This presentation is focused on Fund 1, and Adult Ed is Fund 11, so that would be separate, but we could certainly bring that back if you'd like to look at that.
Any comments or questions?
I think all the questions that I had, I submitted them in advance and we've talked about them here today, so.
Okay, if something comes up, please feel free anytime to call me. I really like budget, so happy to talk about it anytime.
Any other comments or questions? I'll say this, I don't have it in front of me. I know we had some changes in the presentation when we came in tonight, but I spent some time on this slide in particular.
Ma'am, just so you know, the only change we had, just so nobody feels like they have to compare back and forth, is just I added that one more CalSTRS, CalPERS table.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, that's the only change that was in the presentation.
Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't have my notes because they.
No worries,
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
I was trying to figure out, because the enrollment really started dropping in 2013-14. And I was trying to figure out where that enrollment came from. And I know some of it's from the primary grades, even including the TK, but it didn't really jump out at me, so I guess it's just a smattering of all over. Because I also looked at, as you mentioned, I looked at the 4th grade in 1 year, which was the 5th grade the next year. It was pretty steady or even built in the cases.
There was a pretty nice bubble the year before, and I watched it go through the middle school, and then it went to the high school, and then unfortunately they left for college.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a dip there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so on this item, we actually had a motion from Member Nolenberg and a second from Member Lynn, so I'll go ahead and call for a vote to approve the 2018-19 unaudited actual finance reports. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, the motion carries 5-0, thank you. So moving on to item 22, since we already took care of item 21. Item 22 calls for a motion to approve the district's 2019-20 interstatements for negotiations with CSEA 105. May I have a motion and a second to approve, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Member Georgino and a second from Member Lynn. Any comments or questions? I do have one. There's a reference to remove or something like that, remove old language. What is old language? Contract to eliminate old language.
Because we have to just update some terminology, like how things are.
I'll use it. One example.
Health aides, we have LVNs now, so we need to just update terminology throughout the text. Just make sure all our classifications are what we report as, because as versions happen, sometimes updates are made and updates get missed. So we have been very good last year and this year, making sure all those edits occur within the group. So as perfect as a document as we can have moves forward.
Okay.
But we always double check. It's just.
It was an interesting term. I couldn't quite figure out what it meant. Any other comments or questions? I will go ahead.
19B, did we do that?
We-
Did we close the public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
That was motioned by Member Espinoza and seconded by Member Regina. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote on item 22. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 23, it calls for a motion to accept CSEA 23 2019-20 interest statements for negotiations with the district. May I have a motion to approve and second, please?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Member Georgino, a second from Member Lynn. Any comments or questions?
On 23?
23, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted, what's the hours when we look at the wage increases for night shifts? Is there some magic hour?
No, they vary, but, it's just a proposal right now, it's coming from CSEA 823 to us, so they will outline those on the 19th of this
Okay.
week. So it's just a general statement right now, they will get more specific when we actually open negotiations.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will go ahead and call for the vote on this item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 24, it calls for a motion to approve the district's 2019-20 interest statements for negotiations with CSEA 823. May I have a motion and a second to approve, please?
I'd like to make the motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Member Lynn and a second from Member Espinoza. Any comments or questions on item 24? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, so we are now at our consent agenda, which involves routine items approved by one motion and one vote, unless a member of the board or audience requests that any item be reviewed and voted upon separately. And I would request that we approve these items with the exception of 33 and pull up for a separate vote. And then we need a motion and a second for that. I need the motion second before I can do that. Yeah, I got it.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Okay, I heard a motion from Member Georgino and a second from Member Nolenberg, and I do want to call attention to item 26, minutes of the special board meeting, and just, we need to strike Samuel's name from being in attendance, as he wasn't there. It was a Saturday meeting. And with that, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. So now I'd like to call for a motion to approve item 33, classified personnel order 1920-03. We have a motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So we have a motion from Member Georgino and a second from Member Lynn. And Monica, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Can you please comment with regard to the comments from me up there? PE specifically.
PE, there was a project last year where we needed to take a hard look at PE teachers and the ratio of aides to PE teachers. If you remember that we took the 3-year PE requirement at the high school and made it a 2-year PE requirement. And at the same time, we looked at making sure we were legally compliant with PE at the elementary sites. We were compliant with the 200 minutes, but not with the supervision part. So there was a proposal that we worked out with the unions to increase the certificated and take a look at the ratio of PE aides to teachers and to students. So at the time, there was a proposal that Ed Services and I were working on. It was moved forward. However, the ratio of PE aides was incorrect based on the 35-to-1 ratio, which we caught with Mary Ann's help. There was also an issue, so what happened was we called the assistant Joshua Porter and Director Mercedes Gomez, talked to the PE teachers, met with the PE teachers, and then I had to meet with the aides. with one meeting a couple weeks ago. Returning them, not cutting their hours from the prior year, just returning them to the prior year's hours. They had several questions, they came to visit me. We promised that we would do a follow-up meeting. The follow-up meeting is scheduled tomorrow to review those hours. But we returned them to the previous year's hours at the same what they were working in prior years. We tried to minimize the movements between the two sites and make sure all kids had the necessary coverage of 35-1. And I can bring those numbers back at the next board meeting.
Okay. Are there comments or questions?
So I just want to be clear, so currently where we stand is the employees are having the exact same hours this year that they had last year?
The change that I just made, yes.
Okay, so I knew you'll be talking to them about that.
Yes, tomorrow.
Okay, and is that subject to change in the meetings, or what do they expect?
Any change that we make, obviously this is our first time staffing PE with the 2 teachers and the instructional aides to meet the roughly 35-1 ratio. It's always a work in progress that we'll revisit. Per the Personnel Commission and the union, anytime we make a change, it's a 10-day window. Obviously, we notified Robin and we notified CSEA, and we try to make that change. It's not always a great change, but we have to identify wherever we are in terms of need, whether we're overstaffed or understaffed, and make those difficult decisions. So right now, tomorrow we will go through their hours again, just to clear up confusion, but we are returning them to the hours that they had last year.
So that's what this 26 hours per week is? No, what is that?
No, last year they ranged. Some of them ranged from 7 hours, some of them ranged from 14. During the spring, we thought we may have a need to increase that based on enrollment and numbers and budget. We did not have to increase that. We have to go back to the original amount that they had at the end of last year.
Okay, so why are we approving this then?
Well, the first time, I guess, because we have to go back to the original amount that we had at at the end of 2018-19.
But you're saying you expect it to change?
No, I'm just saying that right now we need to stick with the hours. We will evaluate, since it's our first time staffing this correctly. If there needs to be changes, we will bring them back to the table to discuss with you to move forward. But right now, we just need to maintain the hours that we had to have the exact ratio that we need.
So that should make them all happy?
No.
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 I don't understand it.
I guess I'm not clear, is this less than what they're used to, what we have in front of us today?
It is less than what they've been working on for 2 weeks. 2 weeks we overstaffed it, increased our hours for 2 weeks. And then we realized we were overstaffed, so we went back to the hours from before. Marianne, if I'm not
From August
explaining it
29th
right.
to September 16th?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't.
So we're approving it.
To go return back to the correct ratio.
But that's not,
that's not
what's on the agenda.
This is for
26.
like 2 or a little more than 2 weeks at 26 hours per week.
Again, let me explain. So in spring, there was a mistake where we overstaffed it. 26, we were roughly saying that some of them could increase to 26 hours, not all of them. There were about 6 on the table that we might have to increase. They were notified of this increase, and then we realized about one in the first week of school that we had overstaffed the position, so we regrouped. I notified them of that of Friday, but because of the 10-day window, we can't not make the second change to go back to the staffing that we need to be until September 16th.
And then it's gonna revert to something
Yeah,
else?
it's gonna revert to the old original ratio.
But Monica,
You-
how are you gonna have the coverage for 50-minute intervals?
There is a chart that basically there's a rotation of teacher per aide. There's a rough 35-to-1 ratio, which is what the CDE requires. And it is for pretty much every period. I think it's at La Rosa that there might be a 2 or 3 more gap of kids, but that's a 50% is allowed.
Okay. So for the purpose of what we've got in front of us, that's one right, Michael. Right now, I'm gathering we should go ahead and approve the 26 hours for the period of August 29th and August and September 16th.
Yes, please.
But we will be hearing back from you about possible changes to that going forward, or no?
You will be, we would have to have it go forward. We need to fund them at the 26-hour rate right now so that they get paid for the work that they've rendered. And then in the meeting tomorrow, from my understanding, they will go over the hours and the ratio of the current schedule that will be evaluated, and then we would have to put in another request to either keep them at this rate and or adjust a rate.
Okay, so more to follow, basically. Any other comments?
I guess my comment would be, so I have no problem approving this, but I am concerned about employees that we told them they were going to get more hours and now we're saying you aren't. And they made other arrangements, so I am concerned about that, and I would like this to come back to us so we can hopefully do something that satisfies them. That's unfair to them.
Yeah, I would agree with Member Georgino, and I'm hoping that was there an opportunity to, notify them so that they could make other arrangements in advance? I think, I'd like to know that, because I agree, we're impacting, their livelihoods. So it's important, and
I can debrief with you. I have notes on which ones it impacted and which ones it did not. I can bring that back.
and as a general rule, we don't want to be.
But it impacts all of them if you promise them 26 hours and then you zap it away from them. It impacts every single one.
Yeah, how do you know what impacts?
Our letter didn't say temporary.
Yeah, how do you know what impacts? Impacts everybody.
I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote on this, and we'll be addressing it more in the future. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. We didn't do a motion.
Yeah, you moved it, Mike seconded it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
All in favor, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion carries 5-0.
And then it'll be on the agenda next week or the week after or whenever the next meeting.
The next one,
2 weeks.
Okay, with that, we are moving on to board requests, comments, any requests or comments? Okay, future agenda items, we have 3 listed. Dual language immersion, service dog training, and CTE presentation in October. Anything else we want to add to that? We're still working on getting some time frames for the first 2 in terms of when to expect them, okay? Then with that, the last call from the public, if they want to make any comments on an agenda item or non-agenda item. No? Okay, I will go ahead and call for a motion to adjourn. Please.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Member Lynn and second from Member Espinoza. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.